Well, hello there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and whoever you're lucky enough indeed to be doing it too. Welcome back to the channel, and today I want to be talking a little bit about the missile tanks, mainly the missile mechanic, and I want to talk about how I really feel about this. I've let the dust settle well and truly here. I've played both the Tier 9 and the Tier 10 American, the Sheridan and the T92 excessively. And they're a lot of fun to play for the people driving these tanks, but they have kind of broken Tier 9 and 10, and particularly Tier 8. The idea of the nerfs that are coming from Wargaming being anything but completely due is insane. The tanks are exceptionally strong just with the standard rounds they have. The APCR that has a big-ass bunch of derp on. I mean, this is how you play the tanks as a peekaboom tank. But you couple that kind of firepower with this kind of mobility and stealth, and things get pretty crazy. But more than that, I want to talk about the topic du jour. I want to talk about missiles. The first time we had the missiles pop up, the T-49 ATM, that came into Tier 7, and basically I stopped playing Tier 7 when that happened. I was completely disgusted with it. And I want to go on record here as saying I have never once said I thought missiles were a good game mechanic. I think they're a terrible game mechanic. And I was naive enough to believe that they would have changed the way the mechanic works for the sake of these tanks. Now, I don't use the missiles with the whole throwing them up in the air, looking away and using the look around bar at the bottom. It feels incredibly cheap. Like, it doesn't feel good at all. And I find the whole idea reprehensible. Now, I want to break down why. There's two things. One, and the first and foremost thing here, is obviously that the game is designed without missiles in mind. And there are like 350, 400 tanks that were designed without missiles in mind. Their armor profile is completely balanced on conventional means. What do I mean by that? Well, that IS-4, for instance, he has all his armor along the sides and at the front so that he can side scrape and he can angle. And the rear of the tanks is weak. That's where the armor is weak. And you can do all kinds of things like that so that you don't, certain tanks perform well in certain ways. That's... If you're getting hit from above, there are no tanks, as far as I am aware, that are balanced in the game to be hit from the sky. And anytime that is a possibility, you completely negate the armor profile of the tank. You don't have spaced armor on top of a tank. You just don't. So every tank ever designed, its armor profile against these tanks is terrible. Now, the majority of the player base doesn't use the missiles successfully in that manner, but there are a lot of people out there that do. I'm not going to show you a highlight reel of all the videos I've gotten with people just shooting missiles up in the air over the top of obstacles, but it's pretty common. You've probably seen his Royal Fatness's video on Meaty's channel. Iverson's got some great videos of it. Fizzy, all these guys are good players, and they all throw missiles like nobody's business. And it negates so much of the game. The nuance of gun depression versus DPM, like a T110E5 that can go hull down because it doesn't have massive amounts of DPM, so you have to use your gun depression to manufacture peekaboom shots, where other people have great DPM, but it's not applicable because they can't get the shot off. And then you have a missile tank that just goes behind an obstacle and throws a missile over the top of it. And all that armor profile and that nuance and that balance. I don't know how the developers who are in charge of this kind of thing must feel, because they have obviously, like, the guys that I've met from Wargaming have all been hardworking, passionate people. Like, the misnomer is that they don't care or that they don't really pay attention, where the actual reverse is true. They care an awful lot. They really do see working at Wargaming as an opportunity that they want to take the most and make the most of. Every single person that I've met at Tank Fest, in Minsk, in Vegas, in New York, whenever I've been involved in something that's had wargaming stamp on it, the people involved have been outstanding. They have been really careful, really passionate, and really hardworking. First guys there before I got there or anything, and last ones to leave. They really put the hours in. And the guys that I've talked to about balance seem to have the same kind of issues that any person working in any kind of business has. Namely that there are more things at play than just balance. There is selling premium tanks, selling premium time, creating mechanics and tanks that interest people in playing the game. And all that put together can combine for some very odd decisions. That's an IS-7, man. Like, get wrecked. Like a light tank frontally damaging an IS-7. And they are taking a lot of that out of the gameplay in the very near future. But this mobility kills me. Look, I can see that there's tanks missing. They have to be coming from this direction. And I can absolutely haul buttocks down here at nearly 70 kilometers an hour and set up to cover the back door of my team with a massive whopping dose of alpha. Like, that is just, it's too much. It's too bloody much. Like, I can't, and there are so many of these light tanks at tier 10 that these heavy tanks have become far less effective. There's games all the time where we're right back to the state we had where everyone drove TDs, where there were just big alpha TDs, 5 or 6 of them in a game at a time, no heavies, no mediums. And we're going to end up back there because these are just like TDs. These are big alpha TDs that are in a light tanks with a turret. Anyway, back to where I was. I don't think that the end game balance decisions are always taken by the same people who, work on the balancing and the statistics of the tanks. I think obviously in any large corporation, that's not the case. There's got to be someone at the top who is responsible for this. But the amount of feedback given by all the CCs, like I'm in a CC channel that gets a lot of chat. Amanet, Martin Dogger, Bex, Rolling Swarm, Meadsy, Skate when he's not swanning about on the lam. Obviously he's on the run at the moment from the cops. We all know about that. I'm just joking. He's just really busy at work and has a life. These people unanimously, look, all of us said when before it was on Super Test, when it was just a whisper on the wind, that is a fucking atrocious idea. Sorry about the swearing, but it is just, some things are held to be self-evident. If you balance an entire game on frontal, side armor, spaced armor, all this kind of stuff, and then you put a weapon in the game that just immediately nullifies everything I just said, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, I think the tanks are probably a touch too strong with just conventional weapons. Like, this is Himmelsdorf. This is me cruising around in a tier 8 game with a light tank that does 628 into a Borsig and then can bugger off out of the map in no time because its acceleration is crazy. It's like, it just, I know they're changing some of these statistics and I'll be very interested to see how the tank goes then, but this is too much. And then you add the versatility of a round that flies up in the sky and lands. Now, not everyone does it, but if you put the time in, you could absolutely do this. You just got to not be lazy and put the time in like all the other guys that have, and it'll work. What are you going to do? I think this is a bit of a train wreck, and I've played a lot of them because they are fun. They are fun to play. I play them conventionally. I do not play them chucking the missile up in the air and letting it drift gently back down onto your target. And for all that, I still feel like they're too strong. And at the end of the day, particularly the T92E1, it's coming up against tanks that are just, they need to really have a good hard think about what this thing does at tier 8 rather than the Sheridan. Like the Sheridan, fair cop, it's a tier 10 tank, whatever, but it's coming up against the big boppers. This thing is running into tier 8, which is just completely unprepared for this kind of firepower with this kind of mobility. Yeah. No one thought this was a good idea. No one. I mean, no one thought missiles were just what was needed. No one woke up in the morning and said, you know what Blitz needs? It needs missiles. Just, yeah, that didn't happen. Hey, it just didn't happen. Anyway, there's a whole other thing going on too, which is, I think Maddox tweeted it out from Feast about putting these incredibly good tanks behind the paywall, which is really crap for guys and girls who are part of the esports community. Having tanks like the Super Conqueror, the T-22 Uncatchable, the Badger, all that as premium tanks that can then take part in tournaments is just crazy. I still love the game. I think the game's brilliant and I play it all the time. I just played a bunch of games in the Tiger 1 this week to do a video on that because I think since the armor went up on the front to 160mm, it's even better and I love the Tiger 1 and I love doing videos on it. But Mio oh my oh, Cleveland, Ohio, can we just remove the missiles? Like, people might be unhappy about it. I can live with it. I won't be unhappy about it. And I think in the overall scheme of things, these tanks still perform exceptionally well and do their job. It's like a tier 9 and tier 10 T49. What is wrong with that? If you've got a tier 8 T49, get one at tier 9, get one at tier 10. But for God's sakes, just get rid of the missiles and everyone will be happier. Look after yourselves all. Thanks so much for watching. Sorry for the long-winded chat about this. And until next time, stay safe on the battlefield. Oh, and if you're wondering where I've been, my internet was down. My ISP was down. I couldn't upload for about 4 days over the weekend. That's why the stream disappeared and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, it's back now, as you can see. Bye for now.